Jaden's Jaden, and that's 90% of the success last year, but they really built that thing out around him to be supportive and to bring out his best.
Yeah, I mean, we hear all the time coaches will talk about collaboration with their guys and different stuff, but how often is it actually implemented? Or to the extent that you see here, where you truly believe that if David Blau has an idea, which I think there was a play, was it in the playoff game? I think maybe Detroit or
Yeah.
one of them. David Blau came up with a play that ends up winning the game. Maybe it was the Philly game, can't remember. But regardless, there were legit collaboration between all the coaches last year in terms of, hey, this can work. This is how we can help our guys. The players were involved. Jaden's giving feedback to Cliff, and I think that's something that has been glossed over a little bit. I think people have mentioned the importance of retaining a lot of the coaching staff, but I think it's huge where Jaden had an incredible rookie season, and he gets to keep his whole coaching staff for year two, where now he can kind of take that next step. Instead of starting at square one with some new guys, he can start a little further down the road and take a bigger step this year. I think that's a huge part of his development. It's going to help kind of cement him as a really good pro, regardless of what happens going forward with his coaching staff.
Yeah, and it's funny talking with Tavita. Tavita's been here a couple years now. He was here before the change. And I don't know how long these guys will be able to keep everybody together, but like a year from now, if you told me Cliff takes a job, head coaching job, Blau's the OC here, I think Cliff would take Brian Johnson and David Rye with him to his staff, wherever that is. And Tavita Pritchard is the head coach at Stanford. Like if I could parlay all those things and throw $10 on it, I would. Those guys all not to say did the right thing, because I also think they did the right thing for themselves too in keeping this together and seeing how far you can go. But at the same time, like the calls aren't gonna stop. Tavita was getting calls, Blau was getting calls, Cliff was getting calls. Brian Johnson's been a head coaching candidate before. He's been a play caller before. Anthony Lynn on that staff has been a head coach before. I mean, hindsight's 2020, I hated the move at the time, but a lot of people were excited when the Chargers got rid of Lynn to bring in Brandon Staley, who was clearly a disaster. Like a bunch of people on this Commander's staff are going to get more opportunities, and that's a sign of a well-run organization. But it talking to Tavita over the years and seeing his growth as just a person, like wherever that goes, is not going to surprise me.
Yeah, and I got to admit that I was wrong when Dan Quinn was hired. I wasn't necessarily the most thrilled that Dan Quinn was the hire, but the thing that everyone preached about DQ is exactly what we're seeing here, where players love to play for him, coaches want to coach with him, and if there's any doubt about going anywhere else, they're like, screw it, I'll stay where I'm at because I love being with DQ. And you saw it this offseason. You saw it the previous offseason where a bunch of veterans decided to come here to play with Dan Quinn, to play with Jaden Daniels, and I think have a much better year than even they expected when they signed here. But there's a reason Bobby's back. There's a reason Zach Ertz is back. And there's a reason why darn near the entire coaching staff is back. It's a lot of it to do with Dan Quinn. And so regardless of how you felt about him when he was hired, he's lived up to the expectations in terms of the results on the field last year were spectacular. But what you were sold on when you got this guy was he's a leader of men. He's a guy that's has great camaraderie, and everybody loves working and playing for this guy. And that has been so true in the year and a half, whatever it's been since he's been here. It's been that case and more.
I'm with you, man. I think listening to these interviews with these coaches, I think real fans probably take a ton of appreciation from it. Because I think you could just learn so much, dude. And I think that has real value when you're all in on a football team. I enjoy that day, assistant coach day, when the media just gets like full access to the assistants that are there. Timing typically doesn't allow you to talk to everyone, but it is I don't know. I always enjoy kind of getting to hear it from the fellas up close and personal, if you will. I also, I kicked this around a couple weeks ago, Tobe. The conversation around like the sophomore slump, the regression, not only do I not see that happening, I think he'll be better. I think there was a month where Jaden was hurt and playing through it.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that happens again. You can never account for injuries, right? But I mean, the Tampa game and then the first half of the Giants game, weeks 1 and half of 2, he was still learning the speed of the game. Like, I just think this time last year, Jaden was coming off the crazy pre-draft circuit and then getting a new playbook thrown at him. This time, right now, he had to force himself to take a couple weeks off because that's just not who he is. And he's had nothing but time, playbook, game film from these NFL teams. Sure, the defenses could gear up for him, but he's also gearing up for them.
Yeah, and I think the idea that the sophomore slump, because people are going to have more time to stop him, JP, what are you going to do? You're going to play perfect coverage every time and somehow contain him on every snap? Like, it's not like he was Robert Griffin III or someone that is running not a gimmick, but something that's new that
100%,
defenses weren't able to adjust to. JP is a pocket passer who can run as good as any quarterback in the league. I mean, how do you defend? How do you just suddenly defend that?
I don't. So the top 4 quarterbacks in football right now, to me, have separated themselves to the point that I try not to entertain comparisons with Allen, Lamar, Burrow, Mahomes.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But if you get to the next tier down, Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford's an excellent quarterback. Have defenses figured Matt Stafford out? No, because he's just a really good pocket passer. NFL defenses, by and large, for 40 years, have not figured out really good pocket passers.
Yeah.
And like the level of honesty we need in the conversation surrounding Jaden, that's who he is. The other stuff is gravy. Like, you can't play man press on the outsides because when the corner's got his back to him, he's just going to run to the first down marker.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there is other stuff that is gravy, but the dude is just such a pure passer from the pocket that I think Drake May could take a big step up. I think Caleb Williams, if he plays on time, could take a big step up. I'm really excited to see about Michael Penix. Like, I just don't have questions for Jaden.
No.
I just see him continuing an upward trajectory.
And you look at the most prominent example of the sophomore slump recently was last year with CJ Stroud,
which
right?
is also like content headline driven. Yes, the picks went up. Like, I get that, but to talk about a sophomore slump to me means like you step significantly backward and your team falls backward.
Yeah.
And that didn't happen in Houston.
Well, and even Stroud with the sophomore slump, they went to the playoffs and won a playoff game, right? But a lot of people look at it as a sophomore slump and look at what the issues were for Stroud. The offensive line last year in Houston was horrible. And their offensive coordinator, who was getting head coaching interviews, was fired.
Right.
Neither one of those things is going to happen here, more than likely, right? The offensive line here is actually much better this year than last year. And Cliff Kingsbury, if he's gone to another team next year, it's not because he got fired as the offensive coordinator.
Right.
It's because he's going to be a head coach somewhere. So to me, that's where it's different. And with a guy like Jaden, I can't have any fault. JP, even if he did have a sophomore slump, I know it's because something else happened, some different factors. Jaden puts in all the work necessary to take steps forward and get better. So whatever happens with him. And I would have a hard time thinking that with the extra work that he does, with how good he got to by the end of the season last year compared to where he was week 1, I have a hard time believing that he's somehow going to slump backwards. But even if he did, he's putting in all the necessary work to get better. And so with that, whatever. Like, whatever happens, I'm not worried about Jaden. He's going to be just fine.